Attendance will be taken note. And with that, we are at section 2, policies for review cycle. Dr. Russell?
Thank you, Ms. White. And this evening, Ms. Aducci has several policies that came through our review cycle connected to the work of the Special Education Department. So I'll let her speak very briefly on some of her thoughts around here. You can see primarily there's no recommended changes, but I'll let her speak to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. The first policy that we'll be looking at is Policy 113, Special Education. And the bulk of that policy we looked at, we are not recommending any specific changes with exception to the section under recording of meetings. We have experienced some difficulty just communicating this portion of the policy, specifically with our parents and or individuals who might request recording a meeting. So we thought we would look at clarifying some of the language and making it more explicit. Specifically, we were looking at the one section that's highlighted in red and crossed out that made it a little wonky in terms of the formatting. So it was confusing the way that was set off to the side. We did add some language in terms of adding in electronic recording to cover ourselves with regard to artificial intelligence. There are some apps out there that do allow individuals to, I don't want to say record meetings, it actually creates a transcript or a summary of those meetings. We're not looking to add in using those AI transcript or meeting recordings in order to record or keep a record of our meetings, simply because our understanding and from legal advice that we've received is that those AI transcripts are not always accurate. So we just wanted to keep it, again, simple language, concise language, and we just included in video and or electronic recording to make it a little bit more clear. The section that we do want to take out is the section, the district may permit video recording or videotaping of a meeting when written consent is given by all participants at the meeting. That was confusing and we had difficulty. That was alluding to potentially some wiretapping laws, but as long as the participants are knowledgeable about the meeting and the parent, guardian, or individual who is asking to record the meeting has met one of the two exceptions stated above, we wouldn't necessarily be looking to get permission from our district employees who are sitting in that meeting. Are there any questions regarding the recommended changes? Okay, sounds good. The next policy we had to review was food allergy management. We reviewed this policy and there are no recommended changes at this time. However, we would recommend developing more specifics in an administrative regulation. Policy 210 is emergency care. Again, no recommended changes. We do want to develop a administrative regulation in regard to this to help guide buildings when an incident does occur at the building, and we'd like to review and update the forms that we're currently using in regard to policy 210 so that individuals know exactly who's filling out and completing the incident reports within the building level, as well as we're accurately documenting an incident that may have occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aducci. Policy 315, medical inquiries and examinations. There are no recommended changes on the part of administration. Any questions on that policy? Yes.
We had a quick question. Under guidelines, 1, 2, 3, about the 7th line down, where it says, if the employee is determined to be unfit to perform the essential job functions of the position as indicated by objective criteria relating to his or her specific duties in the district's business, then the board, et cetera, who determines whether they're unfit? Is that by medical professionals? Because it kind of says, it says they got to get checked out by medical professionals. I just wanted to make sure that's who's determining
So we
if
would have
someone's unfit.
an independent review conducted by a medical professional, and by reviewing the job description, essential functions, they would make that determination.
So if their doctor clears them and writes a note to that effect, that would be sufficient for you?
So typically in this process, the district would have them see an independent evaluator. Okay. Correct. Same process as we currently have.
Any others? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to come back to policy 320, which was part of the review cycle. And this policy was first discussed in May, and we introduced administration recommended PSBA's version. It was also a PNN. And there were some questions about some of what was presented in PSBA's version. We went back to the district policy in September with some proposed revisions, and it seemed as if the conversation at the table went back to feeling like the PSBA version was most appropriate for us. So we have once again returned with the PSBA version. I know it's a complicated and complex topic, but we're interested in where the committee feels at this point today, and whether or not the committee's in agreement with just adopting the PSBA language.
I'd be in favor of removing the policy altogether.
Okay?
In lieu of removing the policy altogether, does anyone have an issue with PSBA's language?
We were curious about some of the numbered items, specifically 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 4, and just in terms of who determines this, impairment of harmony and things like that. We kind of like colonials. I guess you included a bunch of other districts. We kind of like colonials and North Penns. It's a little more specific, a little more measurable if there's issues.
I'd be okay with North Penns.
Because it's got the comments that would interfere with the maintenance of student discipline, public statements about the district known to be false, and then threats against coworkers, supervisors, district officials. I mean, that is.
More quantitative, more measurable?
Is that North Penn's?
Yeah, more kind of
Yeah, I guess North Penn and colonials are the same.
Similar.
They're just similar.
the number that each of us have.
Thank you.
So this is a carryover issue, not issue, but this is a carryover discussion since May. So in May, just so I bring everybody up to speed at the same place, May we were presented with PSBA's version of 320. There was some concern around the language in PSBA's version, so revisions were made for presentation last month. And then those revisions were not acceptable, and the request last month was to go back to the language in May's version, which is PSBA's version of 320. So we can I don't know how much the revisions that were presented last month are the same and or different than North Penn's. I didn't do a side-by-side, but I don't know if you could speak to that.
I can. So initially, as administration had some questions about PSBA's, the attorneys have assured us it's constitutional in their view. That's their position. I did have some questions about the wording of the guidelines, which was it became part of our conversation about the policy as we really dug deeper and had more extensive conversation. I think Mr. Moran and I both feel as if we should have some policy, some language, so that there is something that our staff can reference. And I am certainly okay with North Penn if the committee agrees that North Penn better meets our needs. I can also pull up PSBA's again. They had 4 guidelines instead of the 3. And that's in the draft version.
And Mr. Clellan, the Colonial and North, very, very close, very similar. My personal, because I did do a side-by-side for the policy meeting, I think North Penn's is more basic to the point. So, I mean, so Dr. Russell, are you saying you're curious or have wonderings about PSBA's version as well?
I did initially,
Yeah.
yes. I have questions about the concrete nature of impairing discipline by superiors or
Yeah.
harmony
Correct.
among coworkers. What is harmony?
Yeah.
Who defines that? It's very relative in my view,
Are you
which was
comfortable
why
with
I
North
had.
Penn?
I'm okay with North Penn's, yes. Administration is okay with North Penn's, yes.
Ms. White, if I'm around come the next policy meeting, I'd vote for the North Penn.
Does anyone else have any issue with that?
I'm fine with the North Penn version. I do not see substantive differences between the North Penn and Colonial versions. So, I'd be fine with that too. But, yeah, I'd be fine with the North Penn version.
Mr. Keenan?
Good.
I'll be fine with proceeding with that one.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay to move on? Great, thank you. So we also brought back political activities, 321, and again, had very extensive conversation and some healthy debate around the language that was presented here. This is a review cycle policy. Administration continues to recommend no revisions to the current policy. In follow-up, there was a question posed about teachers who might have a QR code on their door that then takes us to a link. And the example was moveon.org. And in speaking in follow-up with our attorneys, and in my view, and I shared this with some of you, that is a violation of the policy unless there is a lesson and there are a variety of links connected to the lesson, but not just one link that is one-sided, encouraged by our students. And the attorneys agreed with that. So really what came out of the conversation that I had in follow-up was around that. In practice, how do we administer in situations like this? How do we coach our staff and continue to have those conversations? So open it up for conversation.
I would be in favor of taking MCIU's policy 321 and making that PVSD's policy.
I had one question on either of the policies, just about I think it's the first guideline where it says applicable to curriculum and appropriate to classroom studies, or in the other one, just the classroom studies. Does that cover like co-curriculars? There could be some clubs that have political discussions because of the nature of their club.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of that, Mr. Clellan.
Sorry.
Asking about co-curricular clubs that might have conversations.
Right. Would that fall under the exemptions for classroom studies?
Are you on the MCIU policy?
Yeah, on the MCIU, it would be number 1, Discussion and study of politics, political issues when applicable to the curriculum and appropriate to classroom studies. I just wanted to make sure co-curriculars fell under that exemption as well, because some of them have like
Like environmental clubs, for example.
right.
Yeah, I
Safe
understand. Mm-hmm.
Collective, they might be talking about
Okay.
politics
Mm-hmm.
and policies and things.
Would you be okay if it said when applicable to curriculum and co-curricular and appropriate to classroom studies?
Yeah, or including co-curricular, including appropriate co-curricular activities or something like
To
that.
classroom studies and co-curricular activities,
Yeah,
okay?
I'm guessing related.
Similar to what Mr. Saylor just mentioned.
Related co-curricular activities?
So to call out co-curriculars to be inclusive as part of it,
Yeah.
okay?
I do wonder why we are removing some of the examples that are in the guidelines, because it seems like for the most part, that's what's happening, is we're deleting the guidelines out of the policy if we go with what's on the MCIU. And so, things such like collection of campaign funds or soliciting campaign workers, using students to write or distribute partisan political materials. And then also we have that number 4, which seems to be linked to district employees' rights if they hold an office. So I'm not sure of the value of removing those items from the policy. And then in a separate but related to this question that I have is that this is specific to district employees, but we say nothing about volunteers or school visitors. And I would think that we would want to have the entire school day experience for our students to be separated from political activities from anybody. So I wouldn't want someone who's volunteering in the classroom also to be coming in and handing out political information or trying to promote a political campaign just because they're not a district employee. So that links into our policies on volunteers and school visitors, and I did review those policies, and none of them say anything about political activities. So that might be something to look at in a future meeting. But going back to this policy specifically, again, I'm not sure why we would want to not specifically call those things out as things that people aren't allowed, things that we don't want people doing.
I'm wondering if voting registration falls into this category, because it's not noted.
Voting registration is not considered a political activity.
I would agree, but I just wanted to make sure that we all agreed with that.
Yes. The other consideration that the committee could make is that administration could develop an administrative regulation with select guidelines if it opts for something more streamlined like the MCIU version, so that we capture some of the very specific practices that would violate the policy if individuals were to act on them. That's just
Lofton.
another consideration.
Ms. Lofton, to address one of those issues, if you put employees and volunteers, right, that covers,
And school visitors,
yeah.
right? Like if you're at a basketball game handing out, to watch the basketball game and handing out political information or something like that, that also should not really be permissible, yeah. I think that's fine, and then, you would just want to go and link your policies on school visitors and policies on volunteers back to this policy.
Can we bring that back with those recommended?
Yes, I just want to make sure I heard clearly. So under guidelines, and are we working off of PVSDs, or are we with MCIU at this point?
I'm with MCIU.
Okay, Mrs. Lofton, I'm not sure which policy you were referencing.
Well, my point was, I don't know that it adds any value to this policy to remove the guidelines. So if we pull them out into an administrative regulation that's attached to the policy, then I think we're essentially saying the same thing. But, you know, I think it's helpful to have that information listed there.
Understood. It also sounds like we want to capture volunteers or visitors into our school. So whether it's the MCIU policy or PVSD, the committee has to talk through that more, we would add that stakeholder group. We would call them out. I don't know that I'm clear, I'm sorry, on where the committee actually, as a consensus or a majority, stands with the language in 321 political activities. Are we comfortable as a committee adopting the MCIU language, adding volunteers as a stakeholder group or visitors to the building, and then developing an admin reg that would capture some of those more practical guidelines from PVSD? Is that where the committee would like to be?
I'm fine, personally, I'm fine with that. My issue with policy 321 at the last board meeting was not necessarily the vernacular in the policy, but how the policy was being administered. But once seeing the MCIU policy, I do like that policy better, with the caveat and understand that we want to address the issues of volunteers and people in the building.
I am good with the MCIU policy, with the addition of volunteers. I'm not sure that visitors is appropriate to put in here because this is an employee policy, dealing specifically with employees. I think visitors would come under a different heading. It also talks about during work hours. So, you know, for an extracurricular activity or an event, I'm not sure this would apply either. I think there might be other places, other policies where it might be more appropriate to put those kinds of directions.
I appreciate the point. I agree.
So, Dr. Russell, you're looking for consensus. I personally didn't take issue with the way that 320 currently stands. To Mr. Saylor's point, as I understand the process that happened was he had brought forward an issue that was reported to him within the building, and then there was no evidence of that throughout the building when checked. So again, I don't see a need to revise 321, but 321.
I'm sorry, there was no evidence of what?
The building was checked based on what you had let.
And there weren't 2 signs removed?
I was told that no signs were found.
So
Oh, I was told 2 signs were removed.
I want to clarify that the evening of the policy committee and the board meeting, we did have administrators who walked the building and did not see anything. However, later that week, there was, I don't know that it was a QR code on a door, but there was one door that did have a way to connect to moveon.org, which is a left-leaning, it's partisan. And there was a conversation that was held, and the individual was redirected, and it was taken down.
Because it was
It was in
And that's because it
isolation.
was-
It was in isolation.
And that was because it was in conflict with current policy 321.
Correct, yes.
So again,
yes.
with regards to revisions, if it was addressed, I guess I'm not understanding the need to revise. So if you're looking for consensus, I don't have an issue with the policy the way it stands.
Okay.
So I guess the question is there something specific in the current policy that you want removed?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Saylor, yeah.
Oh, no, you can call me Jason. I personally like policy 321 from the MCIU.
And what differentiates that policy from this policy that makes you like it better?
Completely respect your questions. I don't know if the board wants to allow me to start bloviating on the differentials. If they do, I'll gladly bring them up and bloviate.
I mean, again, I don't see a need for revision. I don't know, Dr. Weston, do you feel as though we should shift from one policy to the other? It's, to Mrs. Lofton's point, it does seem as though it does strip away some of the meat of the policy that we currently have.
I
I don't take issue with either, honestly. I just feel
mean,
as though
my-
if the
my-
policy is being upheld,
My feeling on a policy is that it should be broader, and that the specifics, like what we're seeing in the guidelines here, those could be just as appropriate in, or more appropriate even, in an admin reg. I think admin regs are the place for more specific bulleted directions on what is and isn't permitted. But as far as it goes, I think all of the things that are in the guidelines are covered by the sentence here: employees and volunteers shall not engage in personal political activities during the assigned work hours on property under the jurisdiction of the board. I think everything in the guideline is covered by that. But if you want the specificity, you can put that in an admin reg.
So, Ms. Lofton, to answer your question, guideline 1, no employee shall engage in political activities during assigned hours. So if an employee walks around or comes to school with a MAGA hat, Make America Great Again hat, or a Charlie Kirk Freedom sweatshirt, some might consider that to be a political activity during business hours. They might not, but they might. I'm not necessarily sure. If somebody has a Donald Trump coffee cup or a Joe Biden coffee cup that says, Trump 2024, they might decide that to be a political statement in the classroom. Some others might not. That's the guideline that's not in the MCIU one. That could be more defined in an AR.
I mean, I think as long as we keep the provisions somehow linked to the policy, then, we're arguing about whether we're lettering things or bulleting them, so, it's.
I mean, it says here the use of students or staff for writing, addressing, or distributing partisan political materials is forbidden. But staff does help the school newspaper write. And the school newspaper has written political articles before. When asked of students who helped you write the article, they said the teachers who were on that staff. Does that violate the policy? I'm not saying it does violate the policy, but it says here the use of students or staff for writing or distributing partisan political materials is forbidden. So does that mean what that staff member did in helping a student write in the school newspaper, does that go against the guideline?
I wouldn't say.
Probably not, because that goes under the
Curricular.
applicable to
Probably,
the curriculum and appropriate to classroom studies. So I would think that would fit, if if an issue was made out of it, we
But
would
if I
probably
were a
want.
teacher, I like affirmatives, ones
Yeah.
and zeros, not probablys. Probably would scare me if I have to go to the HR office.
Okay, well, I haven't really studied the
Yeah.
issue in great depth, so, I would want to make sure I was
Yeah.
assured of that. But I would imagine that it would fall under the curricular and appropriate classroom studies provision that currently exists in the policy.
Because that would be appropriate interaction based on the nature of the interaction. Has the union had instances where there has not been a feeling of a comfort level with this current policy?
Not to my knowledge. I would think the school paper falls under those co-curriculars that we were just talking about in the classroom exemption. So I imagine we're okay.
I think it might be helpful to actually have a definition of what we mean by political activity or partisan political activity. Because there's nothing here that says what we are actually looking to regulate here. And we're kind of in a day and age where almost anything can be considered as political activity or partisan activity. I'm not sure I would consider wearing a MAGA hat necessarily to be partisan political activity. It could be, to some, it could not be to others. And then we're in a situation where, political activity is just whatever somebody ends up complaining about. And then it's kind of, too late to either prevent or, it's kind of like the damage has been done at that point.
Right, and that's why we're having a conversation
yeah.
about this policy,
So
right?
there are, there's definitions under the Hatch Act. There's definitions that have been done for Department of Defense. I don't have those with me right now, but I think it's something that we could investigate and, say, just, what is it we're looking to regulate here?
Right.
What are, rather than just, leave it open for, whatever somebody complains about. Because I remember when I was first on the board back in like 2017, 2018, there were a couple issues with the student newspaper publishing an editorial critical of the presidential administration, and we had a lot of complaints about that.
Right.
And, people thought that the faculty advisor should be disciplined. People thought the students should be disciplined. In the end, we said this is not inappropriate to have this kind of an editorial in the paper. And I think, this is what we've been talking about with, situations that are exempt. But still, I think it might be helpful to say really what it is we're talking about here.
I think that's a valuable point that Dr. Weston makes, because, I know that I have seen employees wear merchandise, and I've considered it part of their free speech, and so I didn't consider it a political activity, even though it was politically driven gear.
So that was going to be my response, that if somebody wears a shirt with President Biden on it, or President Trump on it, or President Obama, we do not ask them to change their shirt. That is their freedom of speech. That is their free expression right to wear that shirt. If they're wearing a hat in school, we ask them to remove their hat, whether it says the Phillies or it says MAGA. Unless it's hat day, yes. But I want to go back to the September notes, because again, we talked about this, and this was a challenge, and I spoke to our attorneys about this very question. How do we define political activities? And there really isn't a legal definition of political activities. And she referenced the Hatch Act, what you just referenced, Dr. Weston. So you can see here, based upon that information, how political activities would be defined. An activity directed towards the success or failure of a political party, candidate, political campaign, or partisan political group. That's based upon the Hatch Act. So that's the advice that was offered to us for consideration if we're looking for that definition.
I would support incorporating that. It's right there in the middle. You see where it says Hatch Act gives, there you go.
It's OSC.gov has the full definition.
And that's what was presented last.
But that's also incredibly broad, because one could argue that wearing a specific hat.
It's actually, that's broad, but when you click on the link, it actually brings down everything what you may and may not do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that in the agenda, or is that?
That was last week.
Oh, that's the meeting notes.
These are
Okay.
notes from September.
Okay, okay. Right, I would want to then probably have it go into the admin reg what the linked activities are, so that it is, so that there is clear guidance, so that you're not trying to operate in a murky gray area.
Yeah, it has a may or may not page.
Yeah.
May do this, may not do that.
Perfect.
So we can create that admin reg then and link it to the Hatch Act. with some of these specific examples. Okay.
I can't tell if you're looking to say something based on the way your face looks. You're good? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So then we'll see that next month.
So essentially, what we would be bringing back is the MCIU version modified to reflect PVSD, along with an admin reg, next month. We'll bring that in November,
And the language for co-curricular.
with the language for co-curricular to be included, yes. Yep.
And then
And
separate,
volunteer.
oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Separate from that, you'll also look at the volunteer and school visitor policies and link something
Yes.
about political activities to those
Right.
policies as well.
So incorporate the salient information from political activities into those other policies that the two of you reference. We can look at that, yes.
Where there's no soliciting in the bill, because it's a public school, there's no soliciting after hours, which might cover everything that you're thinking about.
Well, soliciting specifically is selling something as opposed to political activity, which is speech under first.
Like on a property like this, putting like door hangers on people's cars would be considered solicitation. And handing out political flyers inside the building would be considered solicitation, because you're not going directly to their dwelling. Like,
Okay,
if I
I'm
went to
not, I'm
the-
not
if I-
familiar with
yeah, if I went to the
interpretation.
mall- If I
Right.
went to the mall to hand out door hangers, I could be kicked off for soliciting, because I didn't go to their actual dwelling. I could go to an HOA that says no solicitation and drop off door hangers, because we're not literally soliciting, I'm not putting it in a mailbox, and I'm going to a specific door.
Good, okay. Thank you for the direction, that's great. So if it's all right, we'll segue into the legal or PNN policies. There was an update to conflict of interest, policy 827, with a question about potentially a conflict of interest that could occur. We did talk to our solicitor. There was some minor language added, according to our solicitor. I'll pull that up right now, policy 827. So actually, the phrase that was incorporated, for federal purposes, a conflict of interest includes when the employee, officer, agent, or board member, any member of their immediate family. So that phrasing at the beginning of this statement was something that was revised or suggested to be revised by our solicitor. It's been incorporated. That's the change that we're coming back with.
Wait, scroll up 1 second. I don't know if that does the thing that I wanted it to do.
Dr. Russell, it also addresses the cooperative purchasing platform. That
Yeah.
was the question.
Yeah.
And on page 3 of that, when advertised formal bidding, Mr. Subers recommended including legally authorized participation in cooperative bid programs to cover that request.
The portion that I was concerned for.
I'm sorry. It's down here.
Okay.
I
just-
apologize.
And I did see that. I just wanted
Yeah.
to, what you said was different than, okay, got
Yeah,
it, got it.
you're right.
I
The
just want to make
co-stars
sure that it
question.
does the
Yeah.
thing that we want it to do for the purpose. Got it. Because they're already part of a consortium, and then therefore it's pre-negotiated separately from us, so there is no conflict of interest.
Right.
I just want it to be, the language to be clear. Thank you. Yep,
Thank you. My
perfect.
apologies. All right, so
All right.
Ms. Aducci is back
Good
up
stuff.
to talk about 718 service animals in
Mm.
schools. Miniature.
Miniature horses. Got it, got it.
Got it. You're right. I apologize. It's down here. I just wanted to, what you said was different than, okay, got it, got it.
Miniature horses. Got it, got it.
Thank you, Dr.
and
Russell.
where we might want to land here. Thank you.
So it looks as though there's been conversation around policy 718.1, specifically around some questions that were raised during our conversations, I believe, last March. PSBA did make some recommendations in terms of language to be added to policy 718.1. I found that their formatting was, again, a little confusing, not as streamlined as possible. And I know there were questions specifically around the word requests or whether or not an individual may request to bring a service animal onto the school property. So our attempt here, again, is to streamline some of that language. It's to make our policy a little bit less confusing while incorporating some of the language from PSBA without losing its meaning. So on the first page, these were the recommended inclusions by PSBA. The language is not exact, but again, our attempt was to streamline some of this. You'll see later in the document, they're very repetitive in regard to miniature horses and how they can or cannot be considered as a service animal. So we wanted to include the language up front regarding the definition of a miniature horse and what would constitute being able to include the miniature horse as a service animal.
Was off. I said, I love Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They actually do, in the Pennsylvania area, yeah. Ms. Moran, I assume you don't want a miniature horse galloping around south?
It's a service animal.
Can't deny it.
Such an HR answer.
As long as we have as long as we can reasonably accommodate the animal.
That is correct. That is correct.
I've done my homework on miniature horses. The second area we put a lot of work into is really under the guidelines section. Previously in the policy, we really kind of combined employees bringing service animals onto district property to perform their work functions, and we combine that with the students being permissible to bring service animals onto the school property in relation to performing educational functions, engaging in their academics, et cetera. So our attempt here, the recommendations we made here, was really to kind of separate those two out and create consistency between those two sections or subsections under guidelines. So we separated it into general guidelines with students or for students with disabilities, and then later on you'll see the general guidelines for employees. So again, that's meant to kind of take those two pretty separate ideas and make them more concise and explicit in relation to that. Our attempt was to keep the language consistent in these two subsections. We know we want to look at development and/or revision of the administrative regulation that accompanies this policy to make sure we're clear about how any type of request would be submitted and reviewed. And you can see in the language where we crossed out all of a student or employee with a disability may submit a request. I think there was confusion around may submit a request. So in an attempt to kind of clarify that while still honoring what the PSBA was recommending, we added that parents or guardians of students with disabilities who are seeking approval may submit a request. And then if you see below, before approving a request for service animals, the district shall request the following. So any individual who is looking to receive accommodations through a Section 504 service agreement and/or an IEP, they may submit a request. Then that kind of gets moved to the 504 coordinator or the myself and/or a supervisor of special education. We would use the administrative regulation to work through that and/or the 504 eligibility process or accommodation process or the IEP process to make determinations regarding that. Any questions regarding that language or recommendations for that language? Okay. The second section is very similar in terms of employees requesting to bring a service animal on site to perform their work functions. Again, it's meant to be consistent between the two subsections. And then the item highlighted in green under surcharges basically outlines that we can't charge additional money for an individual to bring their animal on grounds. And that was recommended language from PSBA. So, any questions? Some minor changes under delegation of responsibility. Again, in an attempt to make this a little bit more concise and streamlined. And that's it as far as our current recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Aducci. Does anyone have any comment, question, or concern about this policy? All right. So everybody will initiate their miniature horse paperwork. Correct. All right, very good. All right, Ms. Aducci, next one up is 209, diabetes management.
Thank you. In regard to policy 209.2, just as a note, the school district does not currently maintain this policy. We don't currently have this policy on the books. PSBA did come out with additional recommendations for school districts who do currently have this policy on the books. And basically, it's for districts to be able to submit a fact sheet or provide information to parents regarding type 1 diabetes upon enrollment of their student in the school district, as well as, again, in 6th grade. Currently, and I did bring my nursing guidance here as well with Ms. Keaveney. Currently, we do provide that information already to all parents and members of the community through our website. So that really is a moot point for us. If we do want to adopt the policy, though, the majority of this policy, or a lot of this policy, does deal with, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Keaveney, Act 86, in which Pennsylvania states that certain school personnel can be trained through their online modules to be provider of diabetes management and care in a school system. I think it's mainly directed at schools who potentially don't have a full-time nurse member on staff, so that there are members of a school community who could potentially respond to and/or care for a student with type 1 diabetes. So the policy, the recommended policy, goes on to talk a lot about training those personnel. Currently, we did not opt into Act 86. It is an optional program. So I don't know if that's a conversation we want to have regarding, is it a moot point to actually move forward with adopting the policy? And if we do decide to move forward with adopting some type of policy in regard to diabetes management, my recommendation would be to eliminate the section regarding the trained personnel.
How have we been managing students with diabetes up to now? I mean, I assume that I can't imagine that we don't have a proportion of students who are diabetic. We have been managing them appropriately for years because I don't recall hearing anything about it. How have we been managing those students, and do we think it's necessary to have a separate policy?
So I'll redirect to Ms. Keaveney. She can certainly speak more eloquently than I do regarding individual health care plans and diabetes management.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Alducci. So we have a certified school nurse in every building, and we manage the students with diabetes along with counselors. We develop 504 plans for them. We work with parents and the student's doctor with their diabetes medical management plan. So we have really good control over that student while they're in the building.
So are we already pretty much doing everything that's in this policy, aside from the training?
Yes.
So again, do we feel like we need a policy?
I think it's a good conversation to have. I think if you look at diabetes management in relation to other things, such as seizure management, any type of specific individual medical issue that an individual might have an individual health care plan written for nurses to refer, have some type of outline regarding how another nurse might be able to care for that student. We have our Section 504 agreements. They can be embedded within an IEP as well. So I don't necessarily know if it's necessary to add something in regard to diabetes management if we're already meeting the intent of the policy with that Act 117 requirement, letting parents know about type 1 diabetes and providing them informational materials. I guess you could compare it to if we have a policy for type 1 diabetes, should we have a seizure policy? Should we have any other type of medical policy? But certainly it is something that we can consider.
Is there a way, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is there a way, or perhaps, in thinking about medically complex students, if I was a parent with a medically complex student, I would want to look towards a policy as to how they were going to be treated, but I don't know if that has happened. Have parents gone, where would you direct them right now without the policy? Should they come and look for?
They would communicate with myself, and we would develop with a 504 plan with with the counselor and their teachers.
Okay, so that's what would initiate,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add, Mrs. Lefkow?
So I'm looking at our existing policies, and we currently have 210.2, which is our policy on medications. And that policy already is in many ways overlapping with this and does already say, just as with the asthma inhalers, that students are able to carry the supplies that they would need to handle in an emergency on their person. So, I don't, maybe parts of this policy become an administrative reg that gets attached to something else. Again, is it helpful to you to have a separate policy?
I think this policy was developed in response to Act 86. So if schools were going to adopt Act 86 and train personnel, it's a 3-tier training system, and this policy just was developed for that. We did not adopt that. We do not train our personnel. As nurses, we do explain to staff at the beginning of the year symptoms and signs of hyper and hypoglycemia. So if they're passing a student in the hallway, they would know what's going on. It doesn't have to be their student, but teachers are informed. I don't think this policy is going to change how we care for students in the building.
And that was what I took away, but that's why I was wondering in terms of parents having a feeling about the existence of a policy to provide maybe some sort of a comfort level. But if it's in a 504 plan and it's individualized per student, there's redundancy there, I guess. Mr. Keenan, did you want to? Yep.
Yeah, as a parent of a child with type 1 diabetes, I just want to weigh in that don't think the policy is necessary, that the professional, I think that the professional staff at every school in PVSD serves to obviate the need for anything like this policy in conjunction with the parents working with their own professional medical staff and developing an appropriate 504, which, again, just reading this policy, a lot of it reads like what is in a 504, but there are various, this policy also, though, it's sort of distracting. It seems to be like a shotgun approach to diabetes. Like there's this and this over here, and then this over here, and this over here, and it's trying to squeeze it all into one policy when, again, we don't try to do that for any student in their, and the multiple issues that any student might face with any kind of diagnosis that needs, as you said, complex treatment. But so I just want to say that there's been no time in the last several years that I felt like we needed this policy to try to re-explain to our professional medical staff what diabetes is and how to treat it and how to take care of the students.
I appreciate you weighing in on it. I didn't want to put you on the spot about it, but I appreciate you weighing in with your perspective firsthand. Are we okay then to not move forward with this policy? I appreciate the conversation. I think it's an important one. Go ahead. Of course.
Full-time.
It's the one with the little person.
Oh, gotcha. They're certified school nurses, full-time at every school. And what about co-curriculars, like after school and whatnot? Are you available for that?
If there's a need, it would be listed in the 504 that a nurse would be present, and then either they would extend the offer to one of our nurses to take on that additional responsibility or hire an agency nurse.
Thank you.
Very good. I appreciate the conversation. Very important. Very important. All right, that ends our section 3. Brings us to section 4, which is local policies. There are none this month. Section 5, closing items. Meeting notes will be available following the meeting. Our next meeting is November 10th. Notice of video disclaimer is 5.03. 5.04 is adjournment. Get 4 minutes back. We'll start at 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Widener, roll call.
Dr. Campley? Here. Mr. Fountain?
Here.
Mr. Keenan?
Here.
Mr. Liggett?
Here.
Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Mr. Saylor?
Here.
Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection. One point oh five, reading of the PVSD mission statement. Dr. Campley, would you mind?
The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally.
I appreciate that. I think you might have gotten 2 turns. I think I looked at the wrong month. But thank you very much for that. 1.06, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. 1.07, approval of the minutes for September 8th and October 6th. Is there a motion? So moved. Second? Motion and a second. All in favor? Against? Motion carries. 1.08, we have a special recognition tonight, several. And I will go ahead and turn that over to Mr. McKinney and Dr. Russell. This evening we are honoring, while they're moving towards the front, National Merit Scholarship Program, Special Olympics National Banner, and Biking Buddies. I don't think I missed anything else. Excellent.
Good evening, everyone, and we have 2 recognitions this evening that really pertain to our high school students. So I would like to in turn introduce Dr. Fuller, our high school lead principal, who will actually have the honor of recognizing our students this evening. Mr. McKinney and I will take care of handing out certificates and cookies, and then Ms. Zaducci has an additional something.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight we are proud to recognize several outstanding staff and students. The National Merit Scholarship Program is one of the nation's most prestigious academic competitions, recognizing high school students for exceptional achievement on the PSAT NMSQT, that's National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. This exam evaluates critical skills in reading, mathematics, and writing. Students who excel in this program become eligible for a variety of scholarships and scholarship opportunities that are generously sponsored by corporations and businesses throughout the nation. We are proud to celebrate the following Perkiomen Valley High School students who have earned the distinction of Commended Student by the National Merit Scholarship Program. And for that, I have your letters of commendation that are framed up here. We have some cookies and certificates from the board for you. And so you'll have your letter of commendation directly from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. Those students are Julia Koenig. And come on up and you can grab your things. Congratulations, Julia. Benjamin Morissette. Nikhil Nandipati. Congratulations. Christopher Riddich. Congratulations. And our last recognized student tonight is Parth Yadev. As a note, Parth is unable to be here tonight as he is in Australia, representing the U.S. team at the World Triathlon Championships. So congratulations to Parth. We'll excuse him for that one. And then, guys, stick around because after this, we're going to probably take some pictures, I would think. And then you can feel free to depart. In addition, we congratulate 2 of our students who achieved semifinalist status, which places them among the top 1% of academically achieving juniors on this test in the country, and they continue. We do not have your letters of commendation for you because we do not know how far you will go in this competition. You are qualified to continue on and perhaps become a finalist. So, Hannah Leeples. Congratulations, Hannah. And Owen Hamilton. Thanks, Owen. So, the accomplishments of these students, all of these students, reflect not only their remarkable academic ability, but also their hard work and dedication that make our school community PV proud. So once again, a round of applause for all of our national merit contenders. Also this evening, we are here to celebrate inclusivity. We're excited to share that Perkiomen Valley High School has been named a Special Olympics National Banner Unified Champion School. That prestigious recognition is awarded to schools that meet 10 rigorous standards of excellence established by the Special Olympics and education leaders nationwide. Earning this distinction celebrates Perkiomen Valley's dedication to building the best of the best inclusive school communities. Through our program, students participate in opportunities such as Viking Buddies and Unified Sports. And let me give you an idea of how prestigious an honor this is to be getting from the National Organization of the Special Olympics. There are 136, I believe, National Banner Championship schools in the entire country. So that's a big deal. One of them happens to be our next door neighbor, Souderton. They are also a National Banner Championship school. And there have only been 32 schools ever recognized in the history of this competition in the state of Pennsylvania. So that gives you a sense of where we stand in terms of those efforts. Just a little bit more about this. Viking Buddies is an inclusive student organization that became an official Best Buddies chapter in 2022-2023. Their mission is to create a welcoming environment where students of all abilities feel accepted and empowered. The club meets twice a month, runs whole school engagement activities, and has raised nearly $11,000 through the Special Olympics Polar Plunge. This school year, we have 21 buddy pairs and nearly 75 members in the club. We also offer Unified Bocce and Unified Track Special Olympics. Unified Bocce, a winter sport, fields 2 teams that placed 3rd and 4th regionally last season. Unified Track, a spring sport with up to 40 participants, is among PV's most popular programs, featuring running and field events like shot put, long jump, and mini jav. Our program and its admirable distinction as a unified championship school would not have been possible without the leadership and commitment of Miss Ashley Roche and Mrs. Emily Moore. They are both here tonight, sitting in the back, trying to be inconspicuous. Ashley serves as the life skills special education teacher here at the high school, as well as Unified Bocce head coach, Unified Track assistant coach, Unified Dance sponsor, and Viking Buddies advisor. Emily is a health and phys ed teacher at PVHS, as well as the adapted PE teacher, the Unified PE teacher. She is also the head coach of Unified Track, assistant coach of Unified Bocce, and Viking a Buddies advisor. We applaud your dedication and to strengthening our programs and advancing a culture of inclusion across our school community. Thank you again for these 2 wonderful professionals. And so tonight, and this is why the crowd is so big here tonight, I think. Tonight we have the pleasure of recognizing the students who are participating in Viking Buddies, one of our unified sports team, or a combination of both. Please come up and be recognized as your name is called. Dara Asherman. Bodie Basil. Bobby Batisto. Congratulations. Abigail Beal. I'm going to try this one. Malak Borasira. Did I say that correctly? Probably not. Natalie Cairns. Esther Claus. Jameson Connor. Congratulations. Julia Durazio. Mariah Denner. Allegra Evans. Charlotte Foster. Izana Gabriel. Camille Gallo. Lee Hall. Shelby Hallman. Madeline Halfin. There you go. Annabelle Howarth. Christian Jones. Devin Jones. Sadie Clipper. Braden Kohler. Charlie Kamara. Jake Lavala. Emily Lawson. Ava Magditch. Macy Mann. Dylan Marinello. Olivia Marino. Abigail McGinty. Luke Miller. Sarah Moy. Daniel Mozaffari Fard. Congratulations, Daniel. Mackenzie Nash. Stella Podwowski. Did I say that correctly? Taylor Quinn. Alexander Sandoval. Brianna Scaduto. Bryn Schultz. Kennedy Schumer. Avery Stube. Did I say that right? I don't know if you're not coming up because you don't recognize your name or because I'm because I'm saying it wrong or because you're not here. Peyton Stommel. Claire Turan. Mia Weichel. Gia Weichel. Christina Wesner. And Lucas Wolf. All right. Thank you, everybody. And once again, congratulations to our fabulous athletes and members of Viking Buddies. Thanks so much for being here tonight with us. Dr. Russell.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Fuller, and congratulations to everyone, and thank you, parents, for coming out this evening. We'd like to get 2 pictures. We'd like to get a picture of the students that are recognized for national merit, and then also a picture of our unified sports, the group. So if everybody could go out into the lobby, our board president will call a 5-minute recess, and we'll take some pictures, and thank you again. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. 5-minute recess, and then any advisors that happen to be here, including administration, for photos as well. Thank you. a topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality, and I open the floor. Let me see, did anyone sign in? Go ahead, absolutely. No, you're fine. No problem.
Hi, is that okay? Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Lisa Leopard. I am a resident of Trapp. I have 2 sons in the district. I wanted to just come here and communicate as clearly and directly as possible. I would like the district to reevaluate policy 221, which is the dress code policy. Honestly, this issue was never really one that grabbed my attention until this year. As the first day of school photos started circulating, I found myself shocked that these students were in no way against school policy, despite being dressed in a manner that, as a grown woman, I found uncomfortable. I understand, as Dr. Fuller has mentioned to me, that we cannot dictate the parenting choices of each student, and I wholeheartedly agree. However, we can ensure that policies are in place to promote dignity, respect, and at least a baseline version of what decency is. I realize morality and values are on a subjective scale from person to person, but I think it's fairly accurate to say this is a universally accepted, or at least it should be, that no one should dispute a policy that is against allowing children to present themselves in a sexualized manner, which Policy 221 openly does. Of course, it does not suggest dressing with the most skin exposed, but in mind as well, there's no language that states there's a limitation, except genitals and underwear have to be covered up. Imagine if that was the way that the staff or any of us here tonight had to dress. It's not, of course, because as adults we recognize the importance of presenting yourself in a respectful and professional way. We know why it's important. Why aren't we promoting that amongst our most vulnerable in our building, our children? We are not helping them set up for success by being ignorant to the fact that by not condemning this, we are in fact condoning it. For a reference, I did bring a photo of an example that I am happy to share. All personal information was removed, just so we can see an example of what does not violate the policy but is allowed in the halls. Lastly, in addition to almost no limitations on skin exposure, Dr. Fuller pointed out that policies around hems, straps, and the like create imbalance in the environment since primarily focusing on girls' clothes. I find that logic to be flawed. Boys and girls dress differently, therefore there is an inherited imbalance from the outset. He also made me aware that girl students are not responsible for my son's distractions in their education. And I'm actually not coming from a place where I'm worried for my sons having to view indecent exposure on the playground, but more so for our young girls in our district who are already plagued with societal pressures, and then how disappointing to find that their school further perpetuates such an environment and disguise it as self-expression. So in closing, I know that was a lot, and I hate being read to, but I had to keep eye on the time. I know these policies are reviewed every 6 years or so, and it has been reviewed in 2023, but I ask that we look at it again. Thank you. And I can leave this here for reference.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will close comments and move on to Section 2, Reports and Presentations. 2.01, Student Liaisons Report.
Thank you. First, we'd like to thank Link Crew for sponsoring a great homecoming dance this weekend, and thank all the volunteers who helped out.
As fall sports come to a close, we'd also like to wish all the athletes good luck, including the cross-country team competing tomorrow at PAX, and the golf team competing tomorrow and Wednesday at PAX as well.
We'd also like to wish the football team good luck at the Vikings Unite game against Methacton on Friday, and hope everybody has an enjoyable time as we celebrate inclusion and community at PV. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 2.02, President's Report. I have nothing. 2.03, Dr. Russell.
I have no additions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. Solicitor's Report. 2.04, Mr. Subers.
No report.
Thank you so much. 2.05, District and Board Committee Reports. Looking ahead, this month we had a policy meeting directly before this meeting. There is an act 48 committee meeting on the 21st, assessments on the 15th, education and wellness are on the 16th, safety and operations on the 23rd, and then there are some external committees meeting this month as well. Does anyone have anything to add? All righty, seeing none. Move to section 4, education. Mr. McKinney? Every single time. I am so sorry. Section 3 is the consent agenda. There's, if we can have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we are on section 4, which is education. Mr. McKinney.
Okay, so it's 4.01, education updates. Dr. Russell, are there any updates to?
There are no updates. Thank you, Mr. McKinney.
Okay. 4.02 is on consent. 4.03 was taken, action was taken last week. 4.04 action was taken last week. 4.05 is on consent. 4.06 is on consent. 4.07 is on consent. 4.08 is the enrollment report, which is enclosed. And 4.09 is approval for gift services review. It's a new item added tonight, and I so move.
So motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
And that completes my section, Ms. White.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Mr. Liggett, section 5, business.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, anything new for us tonight?
I have nothing to add. Unfortunately, there is no state budget, and that fund continues.
All right. One of these days, we hope to have one of those. Every other item on this section is under consent or is a report that's already been given. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Liggett. Mr. Keenan, payment of bills, section 6.
All right, we have 6.01, ratification, and let's see, motion for ratification of bills and payroll and authorization of payments. Second?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
All right, and at 6.02, make a motion to approve treasurer's report and financial statements.
There was a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
And that ends my section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Dr. Weston, section 7, professional personnel.
Thank you, Ms. White. Items 7.01 through 7.08 are on consent, and that ends section 7.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Dr. Campley, section 8, support personnel.
8.01 through 8.05 are all consent. That ends my section.
Thank you, Dr. Campley. Moving on to section 9, governance. 9.01 is the first reading on policies as presented. Does anyone have a comment or question? Okay, so we'll move those to second read. 9.02, action was taken last week. 9.03 was a discussion item from last week to discuss the process to fill a board vacancy. And that moves us to 9.04, which is the approval of the process to fill a board vacancy. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Are there comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
No.
Roll call vote. Ms. Widener, please.
Dr. Campley?
Aye.
Mr. Fountain?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
No.
Mr. Liggett?
Yes.
Mr. McKinney?
Yes.
Dr. Sepp? I'm sorry. Mr. Saylor?
No.
Dr. Weston?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so motion carries. 9.04. that moves us to section 10, closing items. Once again, the board affords the community an opportunity to speak on a comment of any topic. I open the floor. Okay, seeing none, we move on to section 10.02, comments from board members. I open the table. Okay, seeing none. 10.03, notice of video disclaimer. 10.04 is adjournment. Have a wonderful evening.